child is a little bit lonely, has poor, God bless you, has poor self-confidence, poor self-esteem, and is a latchkey child, meaning he or she comes home by herself, himself, and they have nothing to do until mom and dad comes home at 6 o'clock. And so they're lonely. They're looking for something to do. So what do? They take out their phone and they start doing surfing on the internet. Okay? And what are they looking for? They're looking for meetup chat sites, and that's where they start building a relationship with somebody who they think is 9 or 10 years old. And what the person is doing over a number of weeks, to be months, is that he is grooming the child. And what that means, he is learning everything he can about that child. The name of her parents, where the parents work, what school they go to, who is their teacher, what is their favorite subject, what movies they like, what music they like. Everything about the child they learn. And then at some point, they invite the child to meet him. Usually someplace in public, so that it doesn't look out of the ordinary. Now the child comes, and of course he's now a 40-year-old man, not a 10-year-old boy. Of course they're going to be nervous, shocked, but the man is really a nice manipulator. He knows how to calm her down, and maybe he gives her something. It might be a toy, maybe a phone. It could be anything. And of course, she's so excited about getting that, she forgets about the whole circumstance that it is. And so, again, begins the secondary grooming process. And over again, a number of months, they meet up. And then one time, he knows that her favorite color is pink. He gives her a pink dress. A few more weeks go, and he says, you know, I like to take you to a party today. And of course, what 9-year-old child would be excited about going to a party? Of course, she's thinking it's a birthday party. They get to the house, it's not that type of party. There are like 4 or 5 men there. And that begins the sexual exploitation. And of course, she may want to say, I can't do this, I don't want to be here. And that's where they start using the information. I'll tell your favorite teacher, Mrs. Garcia. I'll tell your parents. I know where your dad works, I know his boss. All the things, they manipulate it, and that's where it starts. Okay? That's one form of silent sex trafficking. There is, of course, the one where they're standing in the street corner, but that is another form. So, unfortunately, Nevada is one of the 10 worst states for child sex trafficking. 70% of the assaults occurred with kids under 17. African American children tend to be the prime targets. Of course, 65% of the victims are uncooperative, and the reason, of course, they're so scared that if they say something, that they will be outed. Let me also say something. I have a copy of these handouts. I'm going to give it to Dan so that he can copy it and give it to you. Because there's also going to be some other information that I don't have on these slides. Okay. And the reason why this persists is that 73% of child victims will not tell anyone for at least a year. 45% do not tell anyone for at least 5 years, and some never disclose the activity. One of the people that we were working with on this was a woman in her late 30s or late 40s who was a victim. She was a victim from age 9 till she aged out at 18. She would come home from school, go on her computer, hook up with somebody, do their thing, come home and have dinner with mom and dad. For 9 years, mom and dad never knew what she was doing until she aged out. And what was shocking is that her father is a policeman. And he never knew that his daughter was doing sex trafficking. So, who were the victims? Well, they live in poverty. They may live in poverty. Homeless or unstable living arrangement, meaning they move from apartment to apartment, hotel to hotel. Maybe they couch surf, maybe they live out of their car. They maybe have experienced physical, emotional, or sexual abuse from their family or friends. Again, isolated and alone. They are, again, latchkey kids, they're by themselves. Many come from the foster care system. Again, low self-esteem, low self-confidence. Many come from single-parent families. Sometimes they have indifferent or uncaring parents. And maybe parents spend little quality time. So the key thing is, wrap all of this, the kids are lonely, they're seeking somebody who will pay attention to them. And that's where they are really vulnerable. This guy will groom them, and they feel, oh, somebody's paying attention to me, somebody's giving me, a phone, giving me clothes, giving me toys, giving me whatever it is that I don't get from my parents or anyone else. And they crave that. Every one of us craves attention. And this is the big factor with these children. So, again, the children are immature. They, of course, lack self-confidence, self-esteem. They are lonely. Usually they are non-assertive. They might be belligerent. They're acting out. And this is the big one. They're looking for somebody who will pay attention to them. So, who are the consumers? They are master manipulators and groomers. They are showmen. They understand vulnerabilities and how to take advantage of those vulnerabilities. They have sociopathic tendencies. They don't care about the child or what damage they are doing to the child. All they care about is fulfilling their fantasy or fulfilling something they want to do. And of course, they do it for sexual gratification. And of course, narcissistic. Self-centered people. They are deceitful. Of course, they lie. That's the only way they can get their way, and they're very skilled at doing that. So, when we think of these consumers, who are they? Well, the consumers are men, primarily. Yes, there are some women who are involved as consumers, but they represent every and any demographic here in the valley. The children the same. They represent every demographic and social economic segment in the valley. On the East Coast yesterday, they busted 108 men and 1 woman.
Wow.
And 3 of the people were employees at Disney World. There was a retired judge who was busted. So they could be a teacher. They could be a spiritual leader, a rabbi, a priest. They can be the plumber, an owner of a business, a supervisor on the floor of a casino here in Las Vegas. In fact, it could be anybody in this room. And generally, these people are well hidden. They don't talk about this unless they know that you're in the business. So you may never know. It could be your own husband is doing it, or uncle, or brother, or next door neighbor, your boss. You don't know, because they don't talk about it. They keep it to themselves. So you never know who might be the perpetrator of this crime. %90 of all victims are local children. Many people are under the perception that they bust in or fly in or whatever the kids. No. Again, the kids come from every demographic in this valley. They can come from North Las Vegas, Henderson, Spring Valley, Summerlin, Centennial Hills, Mountain Edge. It doesn't matter. Most of the victims are girls. So 10% of the boys. One of the things with boys is that what a lot of these men do is they troll the areas where you see the homeless kids. And they'll pick up a boy. 10, 9, 10, 11, whatever. They take them home, and of course they groom them by giving them a roof over their head, giving them 3 meals a day, buying clothes, whatever they need, taking care of them. Then they start sexually exploiting them. And usually that may not last until about 15 or 16, when they get too old for them, so they kick them out. And they go looking for fresh meat. And they repeat this cycle. So, what are some of the potential signs? Unexplained absences. Maybe a sudden change in their behavior. Maybe a change in clothes and hairstyle. Maybe they pick up a new language. They start using slang or terms that they never used before. Maybe they're seen with an unknown male. It's not, and a lot of times you won't pick them up, of course, in front of the school. They'll be down the block. But if you see them, you may not recognize them. Many of them will talk of suicide. They might be anger, might come out increased anger. They might appear anxious or depressed. They will avoid eye contact, and that's a big one. They will avoid eye contact. Maybe they are shown with some type of physical trauma. Now, unusual tattooing or branding. What pimps do on their arm, they will put a brand. They will tattoo a brand showing that that person is his property, so others will not take her. Those are the ones who prostitute on the street. And when they age out, these girls or the boys, they will then do a tattoo over that tattoo to cover it up. It's almost no different than what happened in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. Same thing. That's how they identify them. And that's how they keep them on the straight and narrow. You're my property now. You're nobody else's property. And that's really troubling when you're called property. That's all they look at. All they look at is an ATM machine. They might have unexplained cash or electronics, especially if it's a child from a home that really doesn't have much money. All of a sudden they have a new phone, or maybe a new tablet. Posture, they tend to close in on their posture. They slow because they're not feeling good about themselves. They might lose their appetite. They might also be involved in substance abuse. Now, one of the problems with child sex trafficking, the list of items I just put up there, they are not just exclusive to child sex trafficking. They can be symptoms of other things, attention deficit disorder, maybe problems at home. Maybe they are the ones who transit. They're living in a car one week, living in a motel next, or scout surfing next. So this is what makes it very, very difficult to really determine exactly if a child is involved in sex trafficking. It makes it very difficult. So what you have to do as a teacher or staff member, you've got to be observant at all times. You have to really know your students' behavior, and then if that behavior changes. If you do, you want to approach the student in a compassionate, caring manner. You want to show that you're concerned about him or her. You just want to ask, do you have some problems? Do you want to talk about it? The biggest thing, don't force the issue. Again, as we showed the statistics earlier, they will not admit that they're trafficking. Or you will maybe turn them off, and that's the last you'll see them because they're going to leave school. They're not going to be around school anymore. And again, don't accuse him or her of anything. So what should you do? You send the student to the counselor if you notice any changes in their behavior. And what the counselor will do is that they will look at their attendance record. They will take a look at behavioral issues that might be in their file. They will take a look at their family background. They will look at all things about the child. And they'll sit, and of course they will talk to the child, and they know how to talk to a child to get the information they want without scaring or upsetting the child. This is how they make their decision. So you leave it up to the counselor to make the call on what the problem might be. And again, we all know teachers are mandated reporters. You have to let somebody in the school who is responsible for this know. And then more than likely, if there is a problem, then they would also talk to the principal. Now, one of the things we got to be very careful about, and this is more stunning, is that a lot of laws allow for the arrest of minors for prostitution or sex trafficking, even if they are not starting it. So that's why you have to be very, very cautious, because you don't want a child to get caught up in something that maybe he or she is not doing. You're walking a very, very narrow and fine line. Of course, the child safety and welfare is a prime concern. Now, if the counselor thinks that a student is being trafficked, then they should contact law enforcement and let law enforcement do the investigation and take it from there. Okay? Now, in the handout I'm going to give to the vice principal there are some important phone numbers for you that you can contact for assistance and help. The big thing that you need to understand is not to, at this point, not involve parents or guardians in the situation. Let law enforcement give you the cue to do that. Why? The parent or guardian might be using the child, might even be the pimp. So You don't want to involve the child. So once you give it to law enforcement, let them do what they're supposed to do. Okay? The thing to remember is that our children are very delicate. They don't know what they are doing and why they are doing it. All they know is that somebody is paying attention to them and giving them what no other adult, particularly your parents, guardians, are not giving them. And that's really the big problem. How do we get parents to be engaged with their children? And of course, that's even a bigger problem when you have a single parent family, because that person is maybe working 2 jobs just to feed and house and clothe the family, or the child is homeless, foster care. But in foster care, many foster care parents don't really care about the kids. All they care about is getting whatever money from social service they get every month. So the kids are basically left on their own. Parents not paying attention to their kids. Yeah, they come home and they ask the proverbial question, how was school today? The kid gives a 1 or 2 word answer and that's it. The parents don't even talk to the child even after that. They don't do anything as a family unit with their children. Maybe like going to Lake Mead or going to Red Rock Canyon. And they don't do anything with each child specifically. Let's say a daughter likes dance. But they don't take them to maybe a dance performance or don't enroll them in dance school. Or let's say a boy likes soccer, but they don't go to the soccer matches. Or they don't take them to the soccer games that are played here professionally. So they're not spending quality time with their children. As we all know, raising children is a full-time job, in addition to your full-time job to bring money into the household. So you got 2 full-time jobs. And many parents fall down or do very poorly on the job in raising their family. And it doesn't matter the demographics. It's again more difficult when your family is in adverse situations, but it's just as bad if your family lives in Summerlin and dad or mom are too busy with their careers and they don't take the time to spend quality time with their son or daughter. And that's what's important. Okay. We all are social animals. We crave being with other people. And we all know that was a real problem during the COVID lockdown. And I know schools are having real problems now because children lost 2 years of socializing. And at a young age, at 7, 8, whatever, that's an important time in a child's life to learn how to socialize, get to know other people, what to do, what to say. And when you miss those 2 years, you can't make them up. I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but that is very important. And so I mention that is that we might see an increase in trafficking because of that. And that is scary. And it's caused because we had a lockdown for 2 years. So the bottom line, as teachers, staff members, you have to be very,